tongue-tied there. When Ms. Markowitz comes in, we'll add her. Special counsel, please call the roll.
Oh,
She's right on time. At the end of the 9 o'clock time, 9 o'clock and 48 seconds. All right, so I'll repeat myself. Good morning, it's now 9 o'clock and 48 seconds. I'll call the Sewage and Water Board Finance and Administration Committee meeting to order. Special counsel, call the roll, please.
Director Sloss? Director Howard? Director Pacho?
Here. Director
Guzman? Director Markowitz? Here. We do have a quorum, Chair.
Thank you very much. First item is our CFO, Gray Lewis, will discuss financial update, which is.
Thank you. I appreciate the committee's time here, being here, giving an update. We're staying busy with the major capital projects, the rate study, and then we're getting ready for the budget cycle for this coming fiscal 23. We'll start next month, but I'll jump in with the July results, which is in the packet. The operating revenues are $27.1 million for July, which was ahead of budget, and we're put us about aligned year to date, $161 million for the 7 months ending July 31. Operating expenses were about $29 million, which was below budget, and overall year to date we're below budget, which is good. We expect that to sort of narrow as we progress through the year. Down below in the by fund information, toward the bottom, just want to point out the non-cash expenses for July were $9.9 million, which year to date is about $65.8 million. The things like the depreciation expenses, which are non-cash, and you add that to to get the bottom line there, the revenue less adjusted expenses through the 7 months ended, or $100.1 million, and that's what we use for our debt service and to support our capital program. So flipping on the next page, July was improved, as we mentioned, with the cash collections, and then August came in even better. So we're seeing the benefits of normal collections and working with customers to get the past due customers down. We're actually discussing with the city, participating in the amnesty program in the fourth quarter, which would basically allow a waiver of the late fee, 10%. It's assessed on unpaid bills. If the customer comes to us with a good faith deposit, sets up a special payment arrangement. So believe, that will be another opportunity to work with customers that just aren't in the routine habit of paying regularly. On the next page,
just 1 second. I just got to point out, 26.1 million cash collections is the best we've seen, and I don't even know how long. So that's obviously a resumption of normal collection procedures. And kudos to CFO and customer service to get that done. Sorry, I had to say that.
We appreciate that. You're right. That is the best individual month since pre-COVID. So. On the dashboard, again, the numbers overall looking pretty good, improved since July of last year, which is the comparison we're showing here. We're above our days cash on hand requirement, debt service covenant. Towards the bottom of line 22, we do want to point out a couple of numbers. This is the total number of delinquent accounts at the end of July was 21,764, so the lowest number we've seen in quite a while, much improved over last year. The next line, total number of accounts in dispute, went up. It's 3,765 at the end of July. So that is the figure we focus on quite a bit because, as these notices are going out, disconnect notices, payment notices, we get increased number of requests for investigations. So there were over 1,000 new investigations in the month. And then we closed out about 500. So that number has grown. We'll have to monitor that. And then the metric right below, line 24, average days to complete investigation was much higher at 79. So we dug into that number, and the number of complex cases or older cases that needed to be worked through finally did get closed. So there was over 150 that were, over 100 that were 150 days and older. So that drove up the average number of days to complete investigation. So it's a good thing to clear out the backlog, finally complete complex ones, but it is going to make that average number higher. So we'll have to continue to monitor that.
And the over 60s are down almost $6 million, which is great.
Right. Yeah, see an improvement. The next page, the debt obligation is just the normal spending activity, mainly in sewer. Just a reminder to the committee, we have a set aside amount for the smart metering in water and sewer that's gonna get us part of the way towards that, financing that new contract. On the next page are capital disbursements for the month. 7.4 million was spent on capital in July. And then below, the 5 million was reimbursed to us under our JIRR grant with FEMA for water line replacement. So continuing to progress on that grant. The next couple of slides, just want to highlight to the committee the customer experience slides. We had 22,119 calls received. Average wait time is about 3 minutes, pretty similar to previous month. And flipping over to the page 8, which is our count of payments was up, consistent with the better collections for the month, 119,000 payments received. So that was also a high month. It just looks like March was a little bit higher. And then on the next page, which is our slide that shows the number of estimated bills, there were 58,679 estimated bills compared to actual bill, read bills 80,000. So for both July and August, we see the meter reading team, as you would expect, is challenged by the weather issues related to the daily rain and the heat. But now that we're in September, hopefully we'll be seeing improvement in these numbers. And on page 10, our customer accounts, we break it down by classes: residential, multifamily, commercial, showing our 139,000. So this depicts those numbers. We show improved, lower number of delinquent active accounts and the 8% overall decline in the past due balances.
That's great.
So unless we have other questions on these metrics or the financials, I'd like to skip over to a different topic, which is our capital budget for our drainage program. We could skip all the way to schedule. So as the committee know, back in June, we did a little bit of an update on our, let's go back one. This is a summary level of our capital programs for the West Power Complex, and we talked about in June, we had additional contracts, we had additional costs in these capital programs that we needed to identify sources for. So really, we've been working on sort of a mid-year update, that I would call it, for a few months now for the West Power Complex. So that's composed of the static frequency changers, T7, and then the overall integration, putting everything together. So what we've shown here is just what we did at the budget season last year. So late last year, about $50,000 was planned for uses. And as we get farther into the project, for a few different reasons, the amount of budget authority we like to include in the fiscal 22 budget is much greater by this 96 million. So we'll walk through sort of the different reasons for that. But so the left side is the original budget, the updated numbers that we're proposing, and then you get to change. So just to characterize, about maybe 3 buckets of reasons for this mid-year update to the West Power Complex and these specific capital program numbers. The first I would just categorize as a deeper understanding of the project, the extent of the components that work together as work with our designers. So there's more information, updated costs. There's the bidding environment with supply chain inflation pressures. All of those kind of allow us to update our estimates and have better figures to work for. The other aspect is the new funding sources. So when the city came in and provided the 22 million, we're able to plug that in and look at the additional contracts we can award. We also got a HUD grant, additional federal money, about 6 million. And then the largest additional new source is our own drainage bond tax financing. So as I mentioned, we started looking at this earlier in the year. We trying to look at the best options, talking to PFM and our bond counsel, we're able to approach a market with a drainage tax bond pledging our 9 mil tax source that we receive each year. And there's been drainage financing through the tax millages historically, not recently. The 2014 there was a refunding issue, but as of the end of this year, we pay the last amount of debt off. So this is really a good option for financing to look at our drainage tax bond, like a private placement type situation that would provide us good financing, a good rate, and give us the flexibility to move forward with the West Power Complex and award these contracts. The last category of sort of changes, or what I would call strategic updates, is basically realigning. We're trying to get the timing. This is, a lot of this work will be done over the next 2 years, to be done by 2024. So in order to issue the contracts, award the contracts now towards the end of this year, so that we have the appropriate lead time. And then we also looked at finally reallocating between other sources that we've already identified: capital outlay, fair share, the HMG fund, HMGP. So we basically redid the capital budget, matched up those sources, and looked at fair share in the aspect that when we originally did the budget, we were using earlier sort of the COVID numbers. Fair share has come in much higher throughout 2022, so we feel comfortable in assigning a larger source for fair share specifically. So the schedule, the detailed schedule, if you go forward one, is the same numbers, but at the contract level, and could make it a little bigger. The red columns on the right is where I added the additional sources of the city funds, fair share, the HUD earmark, and the drainage tax bond. So that's what essentially gets added as sources, allows us to match the needed uses to appropriate sources to ensure we have the capital financing plan in place. And again, this is budget authority. The planned expenditures, the expenses of the actual contracts will come in over the next, say, 12 to 24 months. So we'll monitor the cash burn and the actual invoices coming that we have to pay as well. But the first step here is the capital financing plan and feeling the budget authority, having the budget authority supported by a strong financing plan. So that's what we do here for each contract under the CPs, and those add up to the additional 96.4 million being requested.
So we have sources for, excuse me, we have sources that match all the uses. There's no deficit, obviously.
Yes. Another aspect of the capital outlay, we go through a process of, understanding from the state what's available in cash at the end of the year. We worked with those numbers during the budget season, October, November. In January 2022, we got the additional information as to what's, available that increase the amount of capital outlay. So, just by doing an update here now, it makes sense. We have solid information, knowledge of what that updated source from capital outlay is, that it's plugged in, and that'll be utilized, for the utility rack contract 1418, which Ron's going to give an update on that here in a little bit. But so happy to answer any questions. I know it's a lot of details.
Well, I think to answer Poco's question on that first summary slide, it does seem to show that there will be some portion of programs that are going to be on hold until sources of funding can be identified. So that currently represents a deficit, if you will, of 15 million. What are those projects that are going to remain on hold?
Yeah, that's there's several individual projects unrelated to the West Power Complex with just additional capital upgrades at different drainage pumping stations. So in our capital budgeting process, there's typically this situation where we put things on the list that are on hold until identified sources. So there's probably a good 10 to 12 handful of projects between 500 and 2 million. So sort of smaller projects that we would like to get to, but we're always going to be constrained by funding sources. So those are sort of set aside from the West Power Complex.
West Power Complex is one of our most important projects right now. It's
Yes.
not the, close to it.
Right.
Some people might say billing, but
And as a new member, just for my benefit, can you remind me what those abbreviations stand for, SFC and WPC?
Yeah,
Oh, that's
static,
West Power Complex, I suppose.
static frequency changer,
Static frequency.
1, 2, and 3. So we're
Okay.
procuring 3 brand new, static frequency changers to convert our 25 hertz power to 60 hertz.
Other way. 60-20.
60
60-20.
to 25, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what is the line item designated just for WPC, if you will? The fourth line item.
Yeah, this foundation work underground just for the West Power Complex CPA 2601.
Yeah, which sheet is she looking, which sheet are you looking at, ma'am?
The summary one, there's 4 line items that, under the budget, if you will, the capital budget for the West Power Complex. There's design for 4.5 million.
Yes, that's the design component itself for the overall West Power Complex.
And static frequency changers for 69 million, T7, the turbine. I think.
Yes, so those 3 additional capital programs, or again, the major subset is 6 capital programs, 67616 to static frequency converters. But there are also other, I would call it component projects associated with the static frequency converter. So that's just the way of our 4 main categories, which we're lumping the different projects within the 4 different capital programs.
But the highlights of the work entailed in the WPC line are, Gray was saying, foundation work.
Yeah, that's foundation work. Quick overview is a total of about 16 total projects we're anticipating in order to complete the West Power Complex. 6 have been advertised, awarded, or in the construction phase itself. So one of them, 2 of them actually, 1427, the award, that's actually on the GSO's recommendation. And then just a brief I'll do with 1418. But to answer your question, yes, the West Power Complex of Capital Program 826, you probably have various other contracts with him. The largest one is the Operations Center. And there are some other projects that are components of the overall West Power Complex. And really is the C7 portion itself, because we always say the West Power Complex is 2 phases. The C7 basin is SWBNO itself, that's our secondary backup power plant. And then the electrical, the substation itself that Entergy is building is the other component of the overall West Power Complex.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the substation is not in these numbers.
That's correct.
That's being built using the city funds. That's not our asset.
Any other questions? Thanks, Cal. Gray, any more?
Yeah, that's all I had on the July update.
So we need, we don't need to do anything about that, do we?
Nope, we
Nope,
can
just
go
an
to our
update.
first action item.
Okay, so 3A, 3D finance, action items individually, please, and, what about you, huh?
Yeah,
So Jason.
Jason Akers, Foley Udell, to talk about our preliminary resolution.
Sorry. Gee whiz.
Good morning, Jason Akers with Foley and Udell. We kind of just take a step back because, as Gray mentioned, it's been a long time since you've done any drainage financing. Your water revenue bonds and your sewer revenue bonds are both paid out of the aggregate of the user fees for those particular systems, but not until after you pay all of the operating expenses that go along with the system. It's called a net revenue pledge, meaning that you pay all the operating costs and then whatever's left is available to pay debt service. And that's what the bondholders bargain for when they agree to purchase the bonds. They know that they're taking a net pledge after the payment of operating expenses. Drainage, however, has consistently been paid differently. Obviously, the drainage system doesn't necessarily produce revenue the way that water and sewer does. Drainage is funded with the ad valorem taxes, and there are 3 different ad valorem taxes. that are currently being levied, and I say currently, and it has been that way pretty much since 1981. There have been these three taxes in existence. They are affectionately known as the 3 mil, 6 mil, and 9 mil taxes, even though neither one of those is actually levied at that particular level. But when we do a drainage system bond issue, we actually just choose one particular tax, and you choose one particular tax to secure those bonds. And that becomes actually a gross pledge, which means that the bondholders get the first claim of revenues on that particular ad valorem tax. There's a reason we don't do all three, particularly because they have different end dates, they have different levy amounts and so forth, and we don't want to tie up all three. We look for one that provides sufficient coverage and that is not only has the sufficient coverage to pay the debt service, but also has the proper term, the proper length remaining on that tax in order to pay debt service. The bonds that were refinanced in 2014 were secured by the 6 mil tax. I'm sorry, the 9 mil tax, my fault. See, I got confused as well. They are secured by the 9 mil tax, which is actually levied at 7.06 mils right now. And that tax goes through 2031. The resolution before you gives your preliminary, or recommends to the board preliminary approval for a drainage system bond issue secured by that 9 mil tax that is in the maximum principal amount of $45 million, has a maximum interest rate of 5%, and has a maximum final term of December 1 of 2028. Obviously, that's well in advance of the 2031 final year of the tax levy. The reason that 2028 was chosen is we've been looking and discussing with Gray is that not the 9 mil tax, but one of the other taxes that was actually approved in 1978 expires around that time. It actually, the final year of levy is 2027 for that tax. We're seeking an additional year just to provide safety. As PFM and Gray and his team have put together a operational model looking ahead and taking into account all of the anticipated operating expenses, known increases in the expenses from other things, we do not want you to get into a position where you are funding debt service, or you're obligating yourself for debt service requirements beyond a point where you can sufficiently operate the system. So even though the bondholders get the first claim on revenues, we still want you to be able to operate the system. Of course, that's critically important for the city of New Orleans. So the 2028 final maturity is based on the projections that PFM and others have, and Gray and his team have put together that indicate we can continue to sufficiently operate the system, or you can continue to sufficiently operate the system through that time. Now, that doesn't mean that, let me be ultimately clear, that doesn't mean that the system doesn't have funds to operate. It's just that one of the taxes does expire. It needs, there needs to be a renewal at that point, or some other funding source identified. And so that's a conversation to have further down the road. Right now, what we want to do is just put you in a position where you can fund this particular portion of this project and do it without jeopardizing the long-term health of the system. So we think this is a reasonable approach, and it seems one that would be welcome to both Board of Liquidation, to State Bond Commission, and the City Council, all of which have to approve, and also would be welcome to bondholders. Those bondholders, we're anticipating at this point, this is Board of Liquidation's determination of what to do with the bond sale, but we're anticipating at this point that it would be a short-term bank loan with a lender that typically would play in the municipal market and do these types of loans. With your approval from the committee, it would advance to the board next Wednesday. That's the same day as the Board of Liquidation meeting. It would also be at the Board of Liquidation meeting that afternoon at 4 o'clock. We're working to get on City Council agendas State Bond Commission meeting would be in October, and then we'll be moving through with the sale process after that. We would come back to you at your November committee meeting, hopefully with a recommendation. The financial advisors will have a recommendation of the proper lender, and we'll proceed through with closing and have funds available in December. The key to the December, not that it makes a difference, because we have plenty of coverage and we've satisfied all the additional bonds tests. But as Gray mentioned, those 2014 bonds, actually the final payment is due on those December 1 of this year. And that's going to free up about $2.5 million a year, Gray, right? Yeah, so that'll free up about $2.5 million, which will be assumed by this additional debt service.
What will the annual debt service be on this? Roughly. I mean, roughly.
So it's not as easy to say it that way, because the way the discussions are going at this point to fund it is that it will be front-loaded debt service, so it'll be more principal due up front. What we're trying to do is take advantage of the operational capacity that you have in the early years before CELA and other payments kick in a few years down the road. So we're trying to pay up.
It's not linear. It's not level.
It's not level debt service. If we were going to do level debt service,
If we're not, we're
yeah.
we're not.
Okay. Thank you for not making me answer that.
I'm still unclear. You're saying this will mature in 2028, just in a few years?
Yes. Yeah. It will be a very short-term borrowing.
45 million. So what's the numbers?
So it's about 11 to 12 million the first 3 years, and then drops down about 5.7. That's how we modeled it.
Is that schedule you're looking at in here?
No, this is the capacity analysis we did when we worked with PFN to look at the potential borrowing capacity.
Just as a follow-up, can I make a request to look
Yeah,
at that and review
Definitely.
that? It's
Yes.
hard to really comment on this without looking at the actual debt structure.
Okay.
Yeah, this is something that, in a perfect world, we would finance over a longer term, because it is a longer-lived asset. It's just that at this moment, with the expiration of that tax in 5 more years, we need to work around that.
Way the circumstances present themselves, there's nothing else to do about that right now, right? I mean, the most conservative thing is have it paid up before the other tax expires,
That's right.
obviously.
The 9 mil tax expires in 5 years?
Let me.
Because you
I-
just
9 mil
mentioned-
tax, I think, is in 31 when it expires, just looking at what is showing up there. It's a lesser tax, it's a 63963, which is, he said, none of them are, like the 9's at 7.06 or something. When they
So, yeah, there was a 3 mil tax that was actually renewed by vote in December of 2016. That goes through 2046. This is the 9 mil tax that we're talking about now. It was initially voted in 1982 and goes through 2031.
it's the
Sorry, it
six
was
that
initially
expires.
levied in 1982, it was voted in 81.
6 that expires.
And the 6 is the one that expires. 6 mils levied at 4.71 mils. It was originally effective in 1978, and it goes through 2027. So that's what we're working around.
And I'm sure you know, but when they reassess, they lower the millage to have the same revenue. We try and roll it forward, but it didn't work out every time.
But we have, I have an explanation of the 3 taxes. I'll get to Gray. I think you may have it as well, Gray, but we'll get that, and we'll get the capacity.
Yep.
And make sure that you have those.
Yeah. Sorry to drag the group down, but I'm a new member
No.
still.
That's good. As a matter of fact, in the future, let's just have that as a big part of the package. The payout, so,
Makes sense.
makes some sense. Mr. Akers, is there anything else? Is there any further discussion on this? Have you finished your presentation?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you. So first of all, may we have a motion to approve resolution R-135-2022, authorizing drainage system limited tax bonds?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion about that? Good thing we have two other people here. Is there any public comments?
Public comment, Chair.
All in favor, please so signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thanks very much. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Jason. Okay. Now we're going, Corey, you're back on to amend the budget?
Yeah, just for the committee, this resolution we have in front of you is covering the numbers that I just reviewed with the update to the specific capital budget for these 4 capital programs related to the drainage system West Power Complex. As mentioned earlier, this is the culmination of a mid-year update needed for the capital budget to take advantage of additional funding sources that have arisen. They're critical to keep the West Power Complex on track for 2024. The future budget years in our 10-year outlook are being adjusted by the same amount for these that are accelerated into 2022. And we appreciate the committee's action to recommend the updated capital budget for drainage.
So may we have a motion to approve Resolution R-136-2022 to amend the 2022 capital budget and revise the 2022-2032 capital program as discussed previously?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion of this? Is there any public comment?
No public comment,
No
Chair.
public comment. All in favor, please so signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Bringing us to 1/18/2022, request to set millage rates for 2023. And I guess we'll have discussion after we,
Yeah, I could just describe this is a procedural annual resolution that we do to formally request City Council to set our drainage millage rates for 2023. There are no changes in the 3, 6, and 9 mil tax rates. The rate revenues will be determined once the tax rolls are certified. So this is done annually. It's just a procedural process to allow the city to collect on our behalf. So we appreciate your taking up the recommendation to continue with the same millages and allow the process to occur, the annual process.
may we have a motion to approve Resolution R-118/2022, request to set millage rates for 2023?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Discussion on this, do you know what would happen if the we're talking about the same millage?
Yeah.
So if the assessed property values were to decline, what would happen next year to ensure, would we have to roll it forward? What would happen then? Do you know?
No, there's no increase. I think it has to be lower, but
You can't ever go back up.
yeah, every 4 years there's a rollback, but not for 2023. So that next
That's next
4-year period will be 2024.
That was just a stupid question. Okay. Is there any other discussion on that? Any public comment?
No public comment, Chair.
All in favor, please so signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. They'll do it again in 2024, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Kirk Wells, Energy Management, will present Resolution 118-2022. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone on committee. My name is Kirk Burrell. I'm the Sewage and Water Board Office of Emergency Management Senior Response Coordinator. The resolution we have before you is requesting for authorization for award for multiple catering vendors. Any event of we have another emergency, such like an Ida or Katrina type event during a declared emergency. The purpose for this was during Ida, we identified a problem with the single vendor that we had selected at one point, and came to the result that we needed to have multiple vendors under contract in an effort to prevent us being caught off guard with a vendor making a decision on vacating the premises and then putting us in a spot where we did not have any emergency food. This contract or multiple contracts would only be set in place with the mindset of there are no services, grocers, or restaurants open or available in the city at the time of an event such as an Ida. Last year, we, as Sewage and Water Board, we were very successful with the water. We were able to continue with our services, but Entergy ran into the problem with the power throughout the region, not having any power anywhere. So it became a problem for some vendors to accomplish certain things. We were able to get our hands on a last-minute vendor last year, but that put us in a position of at their will. This particular RFP puts us in a position where we have 3 vendors that were selected via a committee, and based on their scores, based on their food distribution vendors that they get supplies from, and other things to provide us food in the event that we have another Ida-like event, no power for 7 days.
I hope we're not gonna see that this year, but, I said, I hope we don't see that this year. I guess, first of all, maybe I have a motion to approve resolution R. It's actually R-132-2022. It's,
So moved.
Second.
moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Just one question.
Yes, sir.
Are there minority vendors?
The RFP was put out for minority vendors, and the RFP was also put out with them having the option to use subcontractors with certain things that they could provide as minority members. But the RFP was put out to everyone.
And I had a question. Is there an objective triggering event? Is it like a state of emergency declared, or how do you decide when we need to bring the food?
Well,
It could be kind of it's hard to get it, but I don't know.
well, in regards to when I'm with the working with NOSEP, working with our incident command, we would have the intel in place to understand at what point do we need to pull a trigger on providing this or pushing forward with this contract. It's all based on the condition of how is the city going to come back. If we're going to come back within a 3-day window instead of a 7-day window,
Right.
then the contract wouldn't be put in place, because at some point in the game, services are going to be put back in place,
Right.
electricity, water, other services, to where we can hold out for 3 days to then move forward with the city coming back in service. If we are in a situation where the intel shows that certain services won't be coming back to provide the necessary infrastructure to stores, restaurants, and the kind, to where our members can go ahead and then provide themselves with going to the grocery store or going to restaurants, then we would pull the trigger on making sure we get this contract set, which we would give them a 48-hour window. We would have the intel in place between all of the entities we have, between GOSEP, NOSEP, ourselves, our own emergency management department. The relationship we have with Entergy would give us that intel in advance to make sure we can pull the trigger on this when
So yes,
necessary.
the emergency declaration would have to be declared.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
So thank you. No. I just was wondering what the objective thing was. All right, so the motion has been, the resolution has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any other discussion? Is
We
there
have, we just had discussion, we need a vote now.
we need what? We need to know about public comment first, right?
Yeah.
So,
Public comments?
is there any public comment?
Public comment.
All right, now we can
Oh,
vote.
sorry,
All,
we have random side note.
oh,
but
sorry.
I know after Ida at the culinary school, just a block over, they were serving as a distribution center for emergency meals for the city.
That was a private entity that
World Central Kitchen.
Yeah, World Central Kitchen. We did go over and talk to them for a moment, but when we realized that was going to be something that took away from providing food for citizens, we didn't go in that direction. We wanted to make sure we had our own. We want to have I guess we would say, more control of our own destiny.
Right.
Not so much relying on the state or the city, and mind you, another private entity who, at the time, everyone with the city could not evacuate, so they came really to provide to the citizens of the city instead.
And these meals are for SWBNO employees?
For the
Yeah,
employees,
okay,
yes.
gotcha. Alrighty.
Any other discussion? All in favor, so signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Presentation.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. We are now, Ron, sorry, I tried to put you on too early. General Superintendent's recommendations.
All
Mr.
right,
Spinner,
thank you,
please.
Mr. Chair. We have a total of 9 items, 2 awards, 5 change orders, and 2 amendments, and then 1 informational item we'll briefly discuss at the end. I'd like to take the contracts and awards, those 2 in global. The first resolution is Resolution R-107, 2022. That is the procurement of the package auxiliary power system for the West Power Complex. So this is our 5th contract associated with West Power Complex, and this is more equipment, more electrical equipment associated with overall build out of the West Power Complex. 1 bid was received on August 15, 2022. That bid is in the amount of $6.4 million, and the General Superintendent's Office is asking approval of this contract 1427 to Walter J. Barnes Electric. The second award is Resolution R-113, 2022. That's contract 236 Carrollton Basin Number 6 Sewer Rehabilitation. This is one of our ongoing sewer rehabilitation contracts associated with the EPA consent decree program. So 4 bids were received July of 2022. The lowest, the responsible and responsive low bid was from BLD Services in the amount of a little less than $3.8 million. And the General Superintendent's Office is asking approval of contract 30236.
I have a question. In Ms. Howard's absence, we have one bid from Barnes on the first item.
My question.
I know were she here, she'd say, why is that?
That on the.
One
bid.
bid, the 4.6 million.
It is, for the West Power Complex, we actually reached out to various vendors, informing them of the bid for this, and we only received one bid on this contract. This question also came up last month, a month before last, on one of our JRR transmission mains, and in the same thing, we are reaching out to various contractors. I spoke with one contractor yesterday about upcoming contracts, and they all said, we'll turn the bid in. They come to the pre-bid conference, but we only just received one bid. So we do vet these one bids with GOSEP to make sure they're responsible, they're reasonable, and because of the timeline, there's no issue relative to reimbursement. So it is hard to say why we're only getting one bid. There's a lot of work out here. DPW, the cities, they're experiencing the same thing. Very few bids on those contracts, so.
Well, I'm glad we're taking affirmative action to try and spur other people to bid.
That's correct.
Thanks for that. Which brings us now to the change. We
Well,
need
we
to
have the
vote on that.
2 awards.
Yes, sorry. So is there, we have a motion to approve contract award resolutions R107-2022 and R113-2022.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion on these matters? Is there any public comment?
No public comment, Chair.
All in favor, please just signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, which
thank you.
brings us to change orders.
Moving into the contract change orders section, we have 5 contract change orders I'd like to take in global. The first one is Resolution R103-2022. That's the ratification of change order number 6, contract 3799. That's associated with the installation of sludge dryer currently taking place at the East Bank Wastewater Treatment Plant. Again, this change order is relative to multiple field change orders with fabricating and painting the new water filter platform and other various activities associated with this change order. This change order is an amount of $201,357.66, and the GSO is asking approval of change order number 6 for contract 3799. Second change order is with Resolution R106-2022. Again, that's ratification of change order number 7, contract 30109. This is a contract between SWBNO and Cycle where we are rehabilitating the structural rehabilitation of our sewer pump station at Sewer Pump Station A. This change order, it consists of 2 field change orders associated with a modification of a chain wall on the exterior of the building, exposing some piping. There's some damp proofing we're doing at this facility, some fill material, we're actually replacing an existing doorbell. So this is a small change order in the amount of $11,394.10. This change order will close out this contract finally, contract 30109, and the General Superintendent's Office is requesting approval of change order number 7. The third change order is associated with Resolution R108-2022. That's a ratification of change order number 10 with contract 1403. This is our site work associated with the demolition of the abandoned C7, C8 basins. This is our first contract associated with the West Power Complex. This change order consists of 4 field change orders from field change order 28 through 31. Based upon various issues, we are adding a guard shack so we can actually have a guard on post in a proper facility. The guards are actually sitting in their car now, so we actually need to do that, wire that up. Some balance of quantities we're doing also on some of the field change orders. We actually have to do some additional work on the electrical side that's associated with field change order 30 as well as 31. And this change order is in the amount of $227,188.99. So, and I think we are adding 30 days to this contract. And again, we believe this change order We'll close out this contract associated with the West Power Complex, the site work, with 1403, contract 1403. I'll make sure I get the contract number. The fourth change order is ratification of change order number 9 of contract 1327. This contract is associated with our water hammer mitigation program, and that's this specific contract on 1327 is the rehabilitation of our Claiborne pumping station, our potable water pumping station, as well as off-site improvements. This change order is associated with replacement of a valve. We ran into some conflicts in the field. We're doing some retrofitting work associated with electrical relays and such, and we're adding a valve associated with this change order. So this change order is in the amount of $53,727.88. And the last change order is associated with Resolution R-112-2022. That's the ratification of change order number 1 for contract 30228, and that's a Mid-City number 2 sewer rehabilitation basin. And again, this is also work associated with the EPA consent decree program. This change order is first change order, and we're to do some bypass pumping at sewer pump station 15, as well as we added a new sewer line segment on this contract. This change order is in the amount of $576,555.16. So General Superintendent's Office is asking the approval of all 5 change orders as presented.
May we have a motion to approve contract change order resolutions are 103-2022, 106-2022, 108-2022, 109-2022, and R-112-2022.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there discussion, any discussion on these matters? Is there any public comment?
No, Chair.
All in favor, please so signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We have 2 contract amendments, which we'll take in global as well.
Okay, and just for the record, that should be contract final acceptances. That's my typo there. So there are no amendments here. These are 2 closeout contract
sorry.
final acceptances. So, and that's just on the agenda. The resolutions are correct. So Resolution R-111-2022, that's contract 30213. That's for the South Shore Basin Sewer Rehabilitation number 1 contract. Again, this is our ongoing EPA consent decree contract associated with SERP. This contract is all done, and the contractor was Grady Crawford Construction Company in a value of $941,021.15, and the General Superintendent's Office is asking recommendation to reconcile and close out final acceptance of this contract. Second contract associated with Resolution R-121-2022, and again, it's the reconciliation and final acceptance of our annual water main point repair contract, water service connection, water valve, fire hydrant replacement at various sites through Orleans Parish. This is our annual maintenance contract that our outside vendor works in conjunction with our networks department. This contract, 2145, was awarded to Bo Brothers Construction Company in October 2020. All work is complete on this contract, and the General Superintendent's Office is asking the committee for final acceptance on contract 2145.
So, may we have a motion to, is it ratify or approve?
We may want to just do a motion to amend the agenda, so it's properly reflected that it's contract, instead of contract amendments, it's final acceptances.
Maybe a motion to modify the agenda so that the contract amendments is changed to say final acceptances.
Also moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So now we need a do we need to approve final acceptances or just ratify them?
We approve final acceptance.
Approved, yep.
Seems kind of like it's kind of after the fact.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, it's done. So may we have a motion to approve final acceptances of contracts R-111-2022 and R-121-2022?
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Any public comment?
No public comment.
All in favor, please so signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We've got 5 information items for your review, including the update on the award contract 1418 water purification plant utility rack.
And that's correct. And we just wanted from the General Superintendent's office just to bring to the committee an update on where we are overall with the West Power Complex.
Good.
And relative to, this is one of our most important contracts that we actually advertised and awarded. So this contract 1418, it's an informational item. Part of that because it still has to go through the approval process with capital outlay partners, facility planning and control. This contract was advertised in July of 2022. And again, we've spoken quite a bit on the utility rack contract. This is, it is literally the contract that connects the West Power Complex to our east, what I call the east campus of the Carrollton Water Plant. So 2 bids were received. The engineer's estimate is right at $29 million. The lowest responsible bidder bid a little more than $32.2 million. So it's a little right at 11% over the engineer's estimate. We can say we're a little excited with that because we were quite nervous of what the bids were coming in on the previous contracts. Yeah. And for this one to come in at 11%, we think that's very well. That's very good. So again, it's just, we've submitted all of the paperwork and the documents to our capital outlay partners at Facility Planning and Control. They have to do that concurrence. Once that concurrence occurs, then we'll come back to the board for award of the contract. But overall, this is our 6th. This is the 5th contract that actually 1418 would be the 6th contract that we put out as advertised, awarded at construction. And we're approximating right at 8 to 10 additional contracts to go between now and probably summer of 2023 in order for us to complete the overall West Power Complex relative to SWBNO side of the fence. So you know, it's amazing that, you know, right at 14 to 16 contracts we're going to hit the street, and we literally started this process about 16 months ago. So wow. It's pretty good. So I just want to give that update just to the committee.
Would you mind, and you may have just said it, I didn't get it. When do we think that this will all be online? Is this end of 23 or? What we call a partial implementation of the West Power Complex. So we say having T7 in and also having the Entergy connection.
That's right. So T7, yeah. And when we say the partial implementation utilizing T7 and the Entergy New Orleans substation is the midsummer of 2024. So we're anticipating Entergy substation is right at the end of Q1, plus or minus, of 2024. Our contract associated to get the partial implementation, and I just want to explain, a partial implementation is pretty much 80% of the components in place except the Ops Center. The Ops Center we're anticipating should be online the end of 2024, maybe Q2, the end of Q1 of 2025. But the partial implementation will allow us, and this contract that was awarded at 1427 will allow us to have an outside switchgear, where when Entergy comes online in 2024, as well as T7, will tie into this component, what we call a partial implementation, that we can actually power the static frequency converter to central control right around mid-2024, summer 2024. And then once the Ops Center is built out, Q1 of 2025, then we'll switch over, tie into the Ops Center. And the Ops Center is really the nerve center. So the partial implementation would be the switchgear, temporary switchgear we're doing T7, as well as some upgrades we're doing in our existing facility of central control until the Ops Center is fully operational.
All right, well, I know everybody is looking forward to having all those things completed. Okay. Is there any public comment that we've missed? No. Any other matters come before us? No? All right, thank you. If there are no other matters, which there seem not to be, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved. Yeah.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, so signify saying aye. Okay, any opposed? We're adjourned, thanks. Everybody, good meeting, and great on the power.
Thank you.
And everybody wants that on.
2024, we'll have more secure power for the West Power Complex.
We are anticipating
yeah.